Let's talk about Harry Potter author JK Rowling, who has slammed Keir Starmer and the Labour Party for failing to stand up for women's rights. Keir Starmer essentially said that trans women are women, and two Labour frontbenchers last week also struggled to even define the word woman. Ella, what have you made of this?
Well, it's actually funny that Keir Starmer is willing to, perhaps it says something about him being a man and the other two MPs that struggled being women, is that he has no qualms in saying trans women are women, which isn't, let's get this straight, isn't some kind of support, expression of support for trans rights at this point. It isn't some kind of nuanced discussion about identity. It's about saying, shut the F up, you gender critical feminists.
Yeah.
You're wrong. You're bigoted, as he said in relation to the cervix thing. It's wrong. It's evil to kind of talk about.
It's wrong to say only women have a say.
Yeah. So Keir Starmer is very clear on what position he's taking in that what's now become quite a toxic, gender war. Annalise Dodds, when she was being interviewed on Women's Hour on International Women's Day, was unable to give Emma Barnett a clear definition of what a woman was. She's used legal kind of blustering to avoid it. And Yvette Cooper just laughed when she was asked on Times Radio and said, haha, I don't want to get into that rabbit hole. I don't often like Suzanne Moore's columns, but she did write a good column saying, well, am I a rabbit hole now? I mean, that's what women have become. Now, look, I've said many times before, I'm not someone who's going to wear one of those adult human female t-shirts because I don't think a woman is simply her biology. I think philosophically and politically, it's a very interesting conversation. Different women are different. I'm not a woman. I'm Ella Whelan. And I think that's very important to reject the kind of biological determinism of gender critical feminists. However, 99.999% of the country, when they're asked what is the difference between a man and a woman, will say, will define it in terms of biology, because that's the easiest way in which we differentiate between the sexes. Biological sex is real and all the rest of it. So this is the Labour Party. We've talked about politicians acting in bad faith and gaslighting us. This is the Labour Party essentially playing games with the idea of truth because it knows very well what most of its constituents think about biological sex. This is just it signalling to a small group of activists who are very intolerant on the trans ideology side of saying we're, still vote for us because we're still fighting your fight. And for, it's going to turn most women off. It's not even able to convince its own MPs to be able to say that on radio, which is significant enough. They're too cowardly to do so. And, may it be their downfall.
Yeah, Emma, that's the kind of question I was going to put to you. I mean, they know what a woman is, don't they? I mean, they're just not being honest with us.
I think the fact that, as you say, Annalisa Dodds and Yvette Cooper, and Annalisa Dodds, the Shadow Minister for Equalities, no less, that, the fact that they were clearly running scared from even saying the word woman has become this kind of grotesquely terrifying thing. It goes to show, as you say, firstly, the influence that this minority of extremely loud and powerful activists have had in changing the tide of discussion, so that really when any politician is faced with that question, and it has become a gotcha question, they are running away scared from it. And I think that you're absolutely right that this is going to be, I think it will be the downfall of the Labour Party when it comes to particularly their female constituents, because JK Rowling is absolutely right. There is a large and growing number of women who are becoming aware of what the implications of this are for their rights, for same-sex spaces and the importance of that. And I think that there will be growing pressure. There has been a serious pushback. And actually, when you look at cancel culture and you look at, for example, the treatment of specific academics like Kathleen Stock and others, people who are getting no platformed, who are really suffering what I would say is bordering on a kind of persecution, that those are women who hold, we call them gender critical views, but what we really mean is they hold to biological fact, something that has been agreed up until this point, that simply they believe in biological sex, which is something that is, in scientific terms, a fact. And so we refer to gender critical beliefs as if they are some kind of belief, but really it's so much more than that. I think that as you say, the majority of Labour's female constituents, but also the majority of people around the country probably hold what we would say were gender critical views. And so any party that shows itself incapable of simply saying the word woman or using it in the way that women commonly, that we commonly use the word woman, that they're going to seem increasingly absurd and detached from the majority of people around the country.
And Ella, I mean, it is always the word woman that causes this, people to get into a flap. It's always the word woman that is replaced with menstruators and chest feeders and all these kinds of strange and alien gender neutral terms. And it seems to be women who get it in the neck for speaking out about this. I mean, JK Rowling, probably the most reasonable, liberal, calm, polite people on planet Earth, is held up to be this vicious transphobic witch.
She was a lovely until quite recently.
Exactly.
What is going on? Until I had to start defending her.
But, she's quite boring.
But you're right. And exacerbated by the fact that we know that in terms of the numbers of what's going on, particularly with young people in relation to those who want to transition, it's the proportion of girls who want to transition to become boys far outweighs the other, the flip side. And yet the discussion mainly centers around men who want to transition to become women, or this whole mantra of trans women are women. You never really hear people say trans men are men, or if they kind of remember that they have to do it as like a tick and they say it afterwards. But I think that tells you something, because there are lots of things about biological fact that sociologically or politically we subvert. So, the best time for a woman to have a baby is when she's not a woman, it's when she's a girl at 15 and 16 biologically. But socially and politically, we've decided that that's not the best way to raise young people. And so then we have normalized having babies at 30 plus. And that's a way of us subverting biological fact. I mean, I don't think any of us have a problem with people identifying as different genders, because we know that, variety is the spice of life, and our commitment to freedom expands to anyone wanting to call themselves and dress however they want and blah, 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 all the rest of it. But that's not what's going on here. What's going on is, not a debate about what society thinks about gender, but an instruction from, as Emma says, a small minority who have large backing in terms of Stonewall and lobby groups, of suggesting that either any discussion about this in society is bigoted and wrong, but also that particularly women who have, let's not forget people like Annalise Dodds and Yvette Cooper a minute ago were talking about women-only shortlists and the importance of differences between the sexes, are now saying, oh, you remember that changing room that you thought was really important we talked about in relation to sexual harassment? Sorry, just, it's not going to be single sex anymore. And if you say anything about it, you'll either be locked up or, positioned as a witch. And so that is, I don't go as far as saying it's misogynistic, because I think that's a very heavy word to use, but I think women are having to bear the brunt of a lot of this. And I think that tells you something about the narrow understanding of both gender and biological sex, and this whole mess that's going on from the trans activist side, because this isn't just about being who you want to be. No one's stopping you from doing it. This is about trying to delegitimize a particular point of view that, as Emma says, has been in place for a very long time. Lots of views have been in place for a very long time I would want to get rid of, but this one seems a little bit mad.